Very good evening to all. Today we are going to discuss about one of the very important topic in the medicine, that is jaundice. So here we have to remember about very important point that jaundice is not a disorder. Jaundice is a signs and symptom. So if we are able to understand about the jaundice, we can able to diagnose this number of the disease which affecting into the human. So let us start. So in this lecture, we are going to study about the definition of jaundice, followed by bilirubin metabolism and type and causes of the jaundice and what is the symptom of the jaundice and how to diagnose the jaundice and end up with the top 3 questions. So now we'll study about the word meaning. So jaundice word came from French word and the another name of jaundice is the icterus. So icterus is the Greek word. So jaundice, the word taken from the jaundice and the icterus, the word meaning taken from the icteros. So the word meaning of both, it is nothing but it is the yellow diseases. So let us study about the definition. Definition is very simple definition. Yellowish discoloration of the skin, sclera and mucous membrane due to increased serum bilirubin level. So it is a very easy definition. Yellowish discoloration in the skin, sclera and mucous membrane, and reason is that increased serum bilirubin level. So we have to remember about what is the normal serum bilirubin level. So what is a normal? Total serum bilirubin level normally less than 1 milligram per deciliter. This total serum bilirubin for production we are making into the two type, unconjugated bilirubin and conjugated bilirubin. Unconjugated bilirubin, it is present in the 80% in our body and conjugated bilirubin present 20% in our body. So let us discuss the when the bilirubin metabolism, how the unconjugated bilirubin develop and conjugated bilirubin develop. So now here we have to study about the normal value. Unconjugated bilirubin normal value is 0.2 to 0.6 milligram per deciliter and conjugated bilirubin is 0.2 to 0.3 milligram per deciliter. So this is the normal value. So when we studied the definition, when this serum bilirubin level increased, we are calling about the jaundice. So let us discuss in more detail. So this is abnormal value. So when we'll call hyperbilirubinemia, we are called when the serum bilirubin level goes more than 1 milligram per deciliter. And latent jaundice means when the serum bilirubin level reaches to 1 to 3 milligram per deciliter, then we are calling about the it is latent jaundice. And when we are calling as a clinical jaundice, that means when the serum bilirubin level goes more than 3 milligram per deciliter. So here we have to remember about what is difference between latent jaundice and clinical jaundice. Latent jaundice, the one difference is the serum bilirubin level is 1 to 3 milligram per deciliter and there is a may or may not be presence of yellowish discolorations. So that is the reason we are calling as a latent. And clinical jaundice, it is the serum bilirubin level is more than 3 milligram per deciliter and presence of the yellowish discoloration of the skin, sclera and mucous membrane. So that we are calling as a, it is clinically we can able to identify the patient's yellowish discoloration. So that is the reason we are calling as a clinical jaundice. So let us discuss about there are two, as we discussed, there are two type of bilirubin present in our body. One is unconjugated bilirubin and conjugated bilirubin. So 80% is unconjugated bilirubin and 20% is the conjugated bilirubin. So let us discuss what is the difference between these two. So unconjugated bilirubin will present into the blood, whereas conjugated bilirubin will present into the bile. As we know, the composition of the bile is mainly three. One is a bile acid, another one is a conjugated bilirubin, and third one it is a cholesterol. And solubility, unconjugated bilirubin are fat soluble, whereas conjugated bilirubin are water soluble. And the unconjugated bilirubin always bind to the albumin, where there is a conjugated bilirubin always bind to the glucuronic acid. So we'll discuss in the future. Molecular weight high in case of unconjugated bilirubin, where there is a very low in case of conjugated bilirubin. And it's a very important for our NEET examination. This point, renal excretion. Unconjugated bilirubin is absent in the renal excretion, where there is present in case of conjugated bilirubin. And Van den Berg reactions. So what is Van den Berg reaction? That means if the conjugated bilirubin, and in the conjugated bilirubin, if you add the Van den Berg reagents, so it will produce the purple color. Directly it will produce the purple color. So if it is conjugated bilirubin, it producing purple color, so we are calling as the direct reactions. Whereas the unconjugated bilirubin joined with the Van den Berg reagents, so it will not produce the purple color reaction. So after 30 seconds, when we add methanol into these solutions, it will produce the purple color solution. So here, that is the reason we are calling as a indirect reaction. So here things to remember: Van den Berg reaction is indirect in case of conjugated, and direct reaction in case of indirect reaction in case of unconjugated, and direct reaction in case of conjugated bilirubin. And brine barrier. So the unconjugated bilirubin can cross the brine barrier, where there is absent in case of conjugated bilirubin. So here things to remember: here it is very easy. Here renal excretions, it is absent in case of unconjugated bilirubin, where there is a brine barrier, it is present in case of unconjugated bilirubin. And renal excretion is present in case of unconjugated bilirubin, where there is a brine barrier is absent. That means cannot cross, the conjugated bilirubin cannot cross into the brine. So that is a simple difference between unconjugated bilirubin and conjugated bilirubin. So let us study about the bilirubin metabolism. In the single word, if you want to explain about bilirubin metabolism, is nothing but start from end product of the heme degradations. Here, the bilirubin metabolism we can able to understand with the three anatomical location. Number one is the reticuloendothelial system. Number two is the liver, and the third one it is the biliary system. So let us study in detail. So this is a reticuloendothelial system. The bilirubin metabolism starts in the reticuloendothelial system, where there is a RBC. The RBC, as we know, the lifespan of RBC is 120 days. So after 120 days, the RBC will go to the reticuloendothelial system or into the spleen. So this one, after 120 days, the RBC will get destructed by the splenic in the spleen capillaries, and this RBC converted into the, or destructed into the heme portion as well as into the protein. So this protein will go for the amino acid metabolism and will be reused again for the some of other metabolism. But this heme part again converted into biliverdin with the help of heme oxidase. With the help of heme oxidase, the heme part of the RBC converted into the biliverdin. So this biliverdin again converted into the bilirubin. So what we are calling as a unconjugated bilirubin with the help of biliverdin reductase. And this biliverdin, it is a molecular weight is very high. So what happened? It will not, it will always combine with the albumin, and this bilirubin albumin complex forms into the in the blood vessels. So here things to remember here: this unconjugated bilirubin forms into the blood vessels, and unconjugated bilirubin always binds with the albumin, as we discussed previously, and forms the bilirubin albumin complex. So here this is the first part, first anatomical location, the blood changes. Second, it is into the liver. So what happened? The carrier medicated uptake, that is the Y protein, will takes the unconjugated and unconjugated bilirubin and albumin complex, and the albumin will be, once it reaches to the liver, the albumin will be released, and albumin will go for the further amino acid metabolism, and unconjugated bilirubin will reaches to the hepatocytes. So these hepatocytes takes the unconjugated bilirubin and converted into the conjugated bilirubin with the help of UTP glucuronide transferase. So here things to remember that conjugated bilirubin forms into the liver, whereas the unconjugated bilirubin forms into the blood. And next one, when the hepatocytes forms the unconjugated bilirubin, in hepatocytes the conjugated bilirubin will forms, and this conjugated bilirubin excreted into the biliary system. So this is about the liver. Next one, it is very important one. The conjugated bilirubin excreted into the biliary system via bile. So as we told, the component of the bile is three, mainly three. There are so many, but mainly three: cholesterol, bile acid, and conjugated bilirubin. So here you can see it here. This is the hepatic ducts. This is the right hepatic duct, and this is the left hepatic duct, and forms the common hepatic duct. This common hepatic duct, and this will be gallbladder. The bile will be stored into the gallbladder when there is necessary. The common bile duct, and this is the pancreatic duct. So this pancreatic duct and common bile duct will open into the second part of the duodenum, that is the ampulla of Vater. So this is the area. So what happens? This conjugated bilirubin excreted into the biliary system via bile. And in the small intestine there is a bacteria. So the bacteria having the beta glucokinase, so that conjugated bilirubin converted into the urobilinogens. And this urobilinogens again converted into the two part, and 80% is converted into the stercobilinogen. So that is, it passes into the stool, so that give color to the stool. Where there is 20% again goes to the liver, and this again this 20% of the conjugated bilirubin again it will go for the further same process. And some amount of the conjugated bilirubin reaches to the kidney, and where it is converted into the urobilinogens. So this is the urine. So this urobilinogens give the color to the urine, where there is a stercobilinogens is give the color to the stools. So this is the normal bilirubin metabolism. So again summary, there are three locations. One is the reticuloendothelial system, second one is the liver, and third one it is the biliary system. So the unconjugated bilirubin forms into the blood, and conjugated bilirubin forms into the liver, and urobilinogens and stercobilinogens forms into the small intestines. So let us study about the type of jaundice. It's now type of jaundice. It's very easy once you study about the bilirubin metabolism. So the type of jaundice based on the causes, as we know, the three locations where there is a bilirubin metabolism taking place: reticuloendothelial system, liver, and biliary system. So here in reticuloendothelial system, based on the causes, there are prehepatic causes, or we are calling as a hemolytic jaundice, and in the liver we are calling as the hepatic jaundice or hepatocellular jaundice, and in biliary system we are calling as the post hepatic jaundice or cholestasis or obstructive jaundice. So we'll discuss one by one in detail, and based on the type of bilirubin we are calling as a three type of changes. One is unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, and next one it is unconjugated and conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, and third one is conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So why we have to discuss here? It is very important. We have studied the three type of jaundice. Prehepatic jaundice always produce unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, where there is a post-hepatic or cholestasis or obstructive jaundice always producing conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, and whereas the liver pathology, that is hepatic jaundice or hepatocellular jaundice, produce both combination of increased unconjugated bilirubin and conjugated bilirubin in the blood. So we are calling as a unconjugated and conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So now we'll discuss one by one. So now we'll discuss about the causes of the jaundice. As we studied about the first one, it is the prehepatic jaundice. So prehepatic jaundice, as we discussed earlier, so the first is happening into the reticuloendothelial system. So in the reticuloendothelial system, we have studied into the first one, we have studied the RBC. Starts with the bilirubin metabolism, starts with the RBC. So destruction of the RBC leads to production of the bilirubin, unconjugated bilirubin present into the blood. So same in the pathology. So the simple word, it is a hemolysis. So any causes of the hemolysis can increase the prehepatic jaundice, can produce the prehepatic jaundice, and you see all the prehepatic jaundice can characteristic of unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. If you check the patient's blood, so you can see the unconjugated bilirubin will be increases than the conjugated bilirubin. So let's discuss about some of the causes. The causes will be congenital causes and acquired causes. So congenital causes is a hemolytic jaundice, hemolytic anemia. So there is a different hemolytic anemia. Here I am mentioning some of the few: hereditary spherocytosis, sickle cell anemia, erythroblastosis fetalis, and thalassemia. And some of the acquired conditions, parasitic infection, that is a malaria, and some of the drug, there is a quinine or the drug can produce the prehepatic jaundice. So here things to remember, prehepatic jaundice always produce unconjugated increased level of or unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So now we will study about the hepatic jaundice. So hepatic jaundice, as we studied, the hepatic jaundice is producing into the liver. So as we studied into the bilirubin metabolism, the liver pathology in the liver, the unconjugated bilirubin is changes into conjugated bilirubin is happening into the liver. So this will be deranged in case of hepatic jaundice. So here produce both unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia or and as well as into the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So when produce unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia and when to produce conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, we will make it very clear. So unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia makes when there is a two condition, where there is increased liver uptake, where there is a, as we know, unconjugated bilirubin more present into the blood. So the unconjugated bilirubin forms into the blood. So if our liver takes the decreased liver intake of unconjugated bilirubin, naturally the unconjugated bilirubin more into the blood. So that leads to increased hyperbilirubinemia. Next is impaired conjugations. As we studied into the liver only, unconjugated bilirubin changes into the conjugated bilirubin. Where this metabolism or this mechanism is changes, so that also increases unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. And next one, when to produce conjugated bilirubinemia, that means increased excretion of into the bile. Here the liver is normally changing the unconjugated bilirubin into the conjugated bilirubin, but there is a problem into the biliary system. So that biliary system can makes the more conjugated bilirubin into the liver, so as well as into the serum, so that produce the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So this is a very important to study about when to increase the unconjugated bilirubin and conjugated bilirubin in order to diagnose the patient. So now study unconjugated bilirubin, when to produce in the liver pathology. So congenital acquired. So congenital is the Gilbert syndrome. So you can see the unconjugated bilirubin is less than 5 gram per deciliter. As we study normally 0.2 to 0.6 milligram per deciliter is normal. But here the unconjugated bilirubin is less than 5 milligram per deciliter. And Schlegel syndrome, we have two types, type 1 and type 2. And type 1, you can see how to differentiate clinically. Type 1, you can see the unconjugated bilirubin will be more than 20 milligram per deciliter, and type 2, we can see the unconjugated bilirubin is less than 20 milligram per deciliter. So here we can able to diagnose the patient with the investigation. You can able to diagnose the patient's condition if the patients are congenital abnormality. Now some of the acquired condition, you can see number one is the hepatitis. The hepatitis virus, alcohol, autoimmune, so many other causes hepatitis can produce the unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, and liver neoplasm, carcinoma of the liver, can produce the unconjugated bilirubin increase in the liver, and septicemia and hypothyroidism. So these and all is the acquired causes can produce unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So now when to produce the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So that is again for our understanding we are divided into the congenital and acquired. So congenital, it is very important, Dubin-Johnson syndrome and Rotor syndrome. Here what is the thing? Here I am mentioning very simple thing, defective excretion of conjugated bilirubin to bilirubin deposit in the liver, which identified by the liver histology. Here very easy to remember, this Dubin-Johnson syndrome, there is a defective excretion of the conjugated bilirubin to the biliary system. So what happens if the biliary system is not taking conjugated bilirubin, this conjugated bilirubin accumulated into the liver. So that produce the liver's characteristic greenish black appearance due to accumulation of the conjugated bilirubin. So this congenital deformity we are calling as a Dubin-Johnson syndrome. And where there is a Rotor syndrome, impaired hepatocellular storage of the conjugated bilirubin lead to conjugated hyperbilirubinemia with a normal liver histology. Here Rotor syndrome also looks like a Dubin-Johnson syndrome, but here there is a impaired hepatocellular storage. Here it is a impaired excretion. Here it is a impaired hepatocellular storage of the conjugated bilirubin leads to conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So how to differentiate this to Dubin-Johnson syndrome, where you can see the liver will be, in histology, liver will be greenish black appearance, where there is into the Rotor syndrome, liver histology is the normal. And acquired condition, again hepatitis, primary biliary cirrhosis, and some of the drug, oral contraceptive pills, everything can be the cause of conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So this is about the hepatic jaundice. Now we'll go for the post-hepatic jaundice. Post-hepatic jaundice, we know it is defect into the biliary system. So here simple thing we can able to understand, there is decreased excretion of the bile, decreased excretion into the bile, or simple word it is impaired bile flow. So here the liver is producing the normal conjugated bilirubin, but this biliary system, this is the biliary system, any problem into the biliary system can produce the post-hepatic jaundice. So that we are discussing under the heading of the extrahepatic causes. So common bile duct to ampulla of Witter. So any problem into the common bile duct to ampulla of Witter, these lesions we are calling as the extrahepatic causes. So here again things to remember here, all post-hepatic jaundice can produce the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So now we'll study about some of the extrahepatic causes, congenital causes and acquired causes. Congenital causes, fibrocystic disease of the pancreas, biliary atresia, and acquired causes, gallstone, inflammatory stricture, carcinoma of the head of the pancreas, and tumor of the bile duct. So this and all is the extrahepatic causes can produce the post-hepatic jaundice, or otherwise known as it produces the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So this is about the causes of the 3 hepatic jaundice. So now we'll study about the symptom of the jaundice. All the 3 prehepatic, hepatic and post-hepatic jaundice can produce the number of the symptom. Like as we studied into the definition itself, yellowish discoloration of the skin, mucus and sclera. Pruritus, that is the itching of the skin. The pruritus is more common into the post-hepatic jaundice. We'll discuss into the differentiation. We'll discuss. Light colored stool and dark colored urine, loss of appetite and nausea and vomiting, abdominal pain, steatorrhea, that means increased fat level in the stool, increased bleeding tendency, other symptoms like a fever, weakness, headache, mental confusion and osteomalacia. So this is all is some of the common symptom of the jaundice. So now we'll study very important thing, that is a diagnosis of the jaundice. So very important to know about the thing. When I was introductory class, I was telling about the, if you able to know about the jaundice differentiation, you can able to diagnose the many number of the disorders which affecting into the human. So here I am mentioning about some of the 32 points about the differentiation of the 3 jaundice level, prehepatic, hepatic and post-hepatic. So here I am mentioning about the 32 differentiation point. There are so many, but here I am mentioning very important 32 differentiating point between prehepatic, hepatic and post-hepatic. So first one, name, prehepatic otherwise known as the hemolytic jaundice, and hepatic otherwise known as the hepatocellular jaundice, and post-hepatic otherwise known as the obstructive jaundice or cholestasis jaundice. And main causes is prehepatic, hemolysis is the causes of the prehepatic, infection is the causes of the hepatocellular jaundice, and where there is obstruction is the main causes of the post-hepatic jaundice. And main pathogenesis is destruction of the RBC in case of prehepatic, and disturbance of the conjugation or impaired conjugation in case of hepatocellular jaundice, and obstruction is the important causes of the post-hepatic jaundice. And red blood cells, if you look the red blood cell, that is a peripheral smear. If you do the peripheral smear or Leishman stain, you can see the abnormal RBC and anemia you can see in case of prehepatic jaundice. Where there is a hepatic and post-hepatic jaundice, the red cell morphology is a normal. And liver morphology, you can see prehepatic and post-hepatic liver morphology is the normal. Where there is a hepatic jaundice, abnormal liver morphology you can identify it. And bile flow is normal in case of prehepatic and post-hepatic. where there is obstructed in case of post-hepatic. So here again some of the other points. The pruritus, it is absent in case of prehepatic and hepatic, where there is a present in case of post-hepatic. So as we told, the pruritus is the itching of the skin. Here the post-hepatic main causes is obstruction. So obstruction leads to unconjugated bilirubin is accumulated into the biliary tree. So that can produce the accumulation into the body that produce the itching of the skin. And hepatosplenomegaly is present in case of hepatocellular jaundice, where there is absent in case of post-hepatic jaundice. And hemorrhagic tendency is absent in case of prehepatic jaundice, where there is a presence in the both hepatocellular and post-hepatic jaundice. So the here things to remember here, it is the why it is hemorrhagic tendency occurring into the jaundice. It's very important because the vitamin K is produced by the liver. So any derangement into the liver pathology can produce increased production of the vitamin K. So that leads to the hemorrhagic tendency. So the liver pathology you can see into the hepatocellular jaundice as well as obstruction of the biliary. So that you can see the post-hepatic. So in the both the condition, the hemorrhagic tendency is present into the hepatocellular as well as post-hepatic jaundice. And steatorrhea. Steatorrhea means there is a fat present into the stool. So here prehepatic is absent in case of prehepatic, where there is a hepatic, it is may be present or may not be present. It is in case of hepatic, and there is a characteristic point, it is always present in case of post-hepatic jaundice. So why we can able to understand the one of the composition of the bile. The bile is the helping for the absorption as well as digestion of the lipids. So when the bile is decreases, so that leads to the what and all the patient's fat lipids cannot absorb through the small intestine, so that will passes into the stool. So one of the very characteristic point is that steatorrhea always present into the post-hepatic jaundice. And the fecal fat, the stool fat, normally 2 to 6 gram per day, but in case of post-hepatic it increased to more than 10 gram per day. And urine color is normally it is a pale yellow, where there is a prehepatic it is a normal color urine, and hepatocellular jaundice produce the dark color, as well as post-hepatic also producing the dark color. Here things to remember, the hepatocellular jaundice producing the dark urine. Why? Because there is the presence of unconjugated bilirubin as well as into the urobilinogens. The both will increases, that leads to production of the dark urine, where there is a post-hepatic produce where the dark urine, that because only increase the unconjugated bilirubin. Very important things to remember. And the next one, it is the stool color. Normal stool color is the brownish, where there is a prehepatic jaundice is produces a dark brown, and hepatic jaundice is produce the normal stool or normal color of the stool or pale, or that here things to remember, there is a post-hepatic it producing the pale stool. Why it is the pale stool? Because there is the obstruction into the, as we studied, post-hepatic is the obstruction. When the obstruction pathology is present, so the bile, conjugated bilirubin will not present into the small intestine. So that leads to the color of the stool will be pale. So that is the reason the absence of stercobilirubin is absent in case of post-hepatic. And where there is a hepatocellular jaundice also producing the pale color, that is not because of absent, that is because of decreased stercobilirubin. That is the different. Now we'll study about the few more points. Serum bilirubin level is a normal, as we discussed, 0.2 to 0.8 milligram per deciliter, or simple thing we have to remember, it is a less than 1 milligram per deciliter. In prehepatic, it is all the prehepatic, hepatic and post-hepatic, it is increased, but in type of bilirubin, it is a very important things to know. So unconjugated bilirubin is 0 to 0.6 milligram per deciliter, and conjugated bilirubin is 0.2 to 0.3 milligram per deciliter. The unconjugated bilirubin, that is less than 5 milligram per deciliter, is increased in the prehepatic jaundice, and where there is unconjugated bilirubin and conjugated bilirubin will present into the hepatic jaundice, where there is conjugated bilirubin is increased in case of post-hepatic jaundice. So this is the very important thing for the clinical understanding about the diagnosis of the jaundice for the some of the condition of the disorders. So urine bilirubin, as we know, urobilinogen is unconjugated bilirubin cannot passes into the urine, and conjugated bilirubin passes into the urine. So here the urine bilinogen is normal is conjugated bilirubin only, and 0 to 0.2 milligram per deciliter, where there is absent in case of prehepatic and present in case of hepatocellular jaundice, and here the diagnostic case is it is always present in case of post-hepatic jaundice. Here things to remember, because the post-hepatic jaundice always producing the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia is a characteristic, it is a water soluble, can easily passes into the patient's urine. And urine urobilinogen normal value is 0.2 to 1 milligram per deciliter. It is increased in case of prehepatic and normal or increased in case of hepatic. Again it is decreased or absent in case of post-hepatic. The simple reason is obstruction. Strecobilinogen, it is a normal value is 40 to 280 milligram per deciliter. It is increased in case of prehepatic and normal or decreased in case of hepatic, and again it is decreased or absent in case of post-hepatic. Again here things to remember, it is a obstruction pathology, that is the lesion, it's producing all the symptom. And urine bile salt, it is present in the post-hepatic jaundice. As we studied, the urine bile salt, it is absent in, normally it is absent in case of prehepatic and post-hepatic jaundice, where there is a prehepatic and hepatocellular jaundice it is absent, and post-hepatic jaundice it is always present. And the liver function test, that is the aspirate transaminase, that is SGOT, normal value is 8 to 33 unit per liter. It is increased as it is a liver pathology. So liver, hepatocellular jaundice, everything, the liver function test will be increases in the hepatocellular jaundice. So that is the things you can see it here. The AST is increased in case of hepatocellular jaundice, and even ALT also increased in case of hepatocellular jaundice. And alkaline phosphatase, this is here very important. Alkaline phosphatase normal value is 20 to 130, where there is increased in case of post-hepatic jaundice. And GGT, it is a normal is 4 to 60 international unit per liter. Again this will post-hepatic jaundice, the GGT will be increases. So these and all will be the diagnostic criteria for the diagnosis of the post-hepatic type of the jaundice. And 5 nucleotidase, it is normally it is a 2 to 15 unit per liter, and this also will be increases in case of post-hepatic jaundice. And bile acids, 2 to 5 milligram per deciliter, it is normal, and the post-hepatic it is increased. And total cholesterol level, it is less than 200 milligram per deciliter, and post-hepatic it is increased. Why it is increased? This everything is increased here. So everything is a simple pathology. It is a obstruction of the bile. So component of the bile is 3. There is a bile acid, conjugated bilirubin, and total cholesterol. So everything you can see it here. It is a increases. And peripheral smear, as we discussed normally, abnormal RBC you can see into the prehepatic, where there is a normal RBC you can see into the hepatic and post-hepatic. And serology you can see there is a surface antigen, core antigen, and E antigens of hepatitis B you can see in case of hepatitis. If the patient suffering from hepatitis can produce the hepatocellular jaundice, so that you can see under the investigation. And radiology you can see the liver lesions, and you can see the common bile duct obstruction you can able to detect with the help of radiology. And prothrombin time, here very important for diagnosis. Prothrombin time 11 to 13 seconds is a normal, where there is in hepatocellular jaundice and post-hepatic jaundice, both it is a prolonged prothrombin time. So why it is a hepatocellular jaundice is a prolonged? That is simple reason, it is a decreased synthesis of the clotting factor, where the clotting factor synthesis, as we know normally, it is synthesis into the liver. And here in post-hepatic, the prothrombin time is prolonged. The simple reason is decreased absorption of the clotting factor. That is a simple reason. So here very easy to remember. And next one, it is the last one, it is a hemoglobin. So you can see, as we know, hemoglobin, the prehepatic is decreased, that is anemia, and where there is a normal, in case of hepatocellular jaundice and post-hepatic jaundice. So that is the 32 points can differentiate about the pre-hepatic, hepatic and post-hepatic jaundice. So this is very important to diagnose the jaundice. So the last one, it is a vitamin K. Normal value is 0.22, 3.2 nanogram per ml, and normal in case of pre-hepatic. Where there is hepatic, it is hepatic hepatocellular jaundice and post-hepatic jaundice, both will be decreases. So that's about the diagnosis of jaundice, very important to remember. So this will be help to differentiate about the pre-hepatic, hepatocellular and post-hepatic jaundice in the patients. So that's about my thing. So here I am writing about the jaundice summary. Jaundice is not a disease, but provide the clue for the identification of the many disorders of the human. Jaundice classified as the pre-hepatic, hepatic and post-hepatic jaundice based on the causes and unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia and conjugated hyperbilirubinemia based on the nature of the bilirubin deposit into the body. And the liver function tests like AST, ALT, GGT, vitamin K, 5 nucleotidase, prothrombin time and serology are help to differentiate the jaundice type. So that's about my class today, jaundice. So this is my reference, thanks to my reference. And now let us discuss about the top 3 questions. Number 1, neonatal jaundice is the examples of which type of jaundice? And number 2, what is carotenemia? How it is differed from the jaundice? And third question, mention the one homeopathic drug for the pre-hepatic, hepatic and post-hepatic jaundice in each. So this post your answer into the YouTube comment box, and I will try to answer into the within next class. So this top 3 question is very important for our understanding about the jaundice, because especially most of the patients is a neonatal jaundice is a very common. So we have to understand about whether neonatal jaundice is a physiological or pathology. So, and we have to understand about the neonatal jaundice is the examples of which type of the jaundice, which type of 3. We have studied about the pre-hepatic, hepatocellular and post-hepatic. Which type of the jaundice the neonatal jaundice comes under. And what is carotenemia? Most of the time we will be confusing with this word, carotenemia. So how to difference from the jaundice? So it's very important clinical differentiation. And mention about one homeopathic drug for each type of the jaundice. So post your answer into the YouTube. So that's about my lecture today. So thanks for all. I always quote this word, knowledge is our power. So we'll meet into the next very important topic. We'll discuss into the next class. So thank you.